Today's lesson is going to be on how to use a sketchbook. Now this is going to be very vital to class. The sketchbook is a very powerful tool that many artists use, and you'll be using your sketchbook throughout the entire year. Your sketchbook also doubles as like a textbook because I've kind of fashioned it that way. So I'll be taking grades out of your sketchbook as well as on your actual final work as well. So everyone knows that a sketchbook is just used for drawing, but few have knowledge on how powerful of an art tool it actually is. There's a lot of misconceptions about it, and there's some tips that many people aren't aware of. So I'm going to lay out examples of both, and I'm going to go into detail on how your sketchbook is essential to success in my class. So first we're going to start with misconceptions. So a lot of people believe that sketchbooks are for finished work. No. Rarely should you ever have anything that is completely finished in a sketchbook. It's mainly for planning and figuring things out and experimenting. That's what a sketchbook is for. Every page in a sketchbook should be perfect. This is one even artists kind of struggle with. They want that beautiful opening up the sketchbook and every single page is practically an artwork in of itself. That's not the case. It should never really be that way. There's artists that do sketchbook opening videos, and that's not, real reality. Most artists will use their sketchbook and have just weird stuff plastered throughout it. Random notes, scribbled out drawings, all kinds of things where it's just not perfect. And that's how it should be. And sketchbooks are only for serious work. One of my biggest things that I have a lot of students experience is a thing called art block. It's akin to writer's block, where they don't know what to draw or what to create. I tell all my students, if you are having a bad case of art block, draw something silly in your sketchbook. Draw something dumb. I don't care if you draw SpongeBob or Patrick. Just draw something silly. If you want to draw a meme, draw a meme. You want to it really helps break that art block down and really get you the creative juices flowing again. Is just to really work and play in your sketchbook instead of just keeping it just for serious work. Now, this is what sketchbooks are actually for. They are for planning. Sketchbooks, you will use them to plan out your artwork. If you are Art 2 and above, you will be making thumbnails often, pretty much with every project. So your sketchbook is going to be vital for planning everything. It's also used for practice. Sometimes you can't quite get a hand right, and you have to draw it a bunch of times on a single page in order to figure out exactly what you need to do. So, or you want to play with some technique for drawing hair. That's what that's for. You can practice with new media in your sketchbook as well. It's for fun. Like I said, draw dumb things in your sketchbook. As long as they're school appropriate, I don't care. Just use it for fun. Experimentation. This is where you could really play with sketchbooks and play with materials and going for things that are kind of really out of the box. It's the place to do that is your sketchbook. If you do it in your sketchbook before you do it on any finished piece, you are more than likely going to get a way better result than experimenting on the finished piece. You never want to experiment on the finished piece. You do it in your sketchbook. So I will go into detail on this in another video, but I'm going to cover a small bit of it here. The main thing to remember about your sketchbook is that you use it to figure out your final and finished work. Without the utter frustration of having to start over because you hate the composition or other things that just weren't working out. So as you're working, a sketchbook helps you plan it all out ahead of time so you don't have to start over. This kind of prevents having to put in twice the amount of work. This is a quick way, an easy way to prevent frustration. So doing thumbnail sketches, super easy to do, and yet saves you a lot of time and headache. So thumbnail sketches will be a big part, especially if you're art 2 and above. I've got some sketches in the background here. This was from a guy's like notes and such as he's planning out his artwork. He teaches painting at UALR. So thumbnail sketches are quick sketches used to plan out key details, compositions, and etc. Thumbnail drawings don't normally exceed a minute in length before moving on to a different composition or more detailed planning drawing. You do not want to spend forever on your thumbnail sketch because you'll end up loving your thumbnail sketch more than you love your final piece. You really just map it in really fast. It only takes just a few minutes to do a thumbnail sketch. So working with thumbnails means less frustration for you. Often students will skip thumbnails in favor of laziness, but it causes more frustration on the student's part when they're dissatisfied with their work. Since they failed to plan, compositions go wonky, details go up in the air, and the artwork falls short of its full potential. It really hurts you in the long run if you do not do thumbnail sketches. So make sure to make notes, set a color palette, adjust composition to media size, and eliminate bad compositions as you work. So what that means, whenever you're drawing a thumbnail sketch, simple shapes can stand in for objects. I never draw like a full hand in my compositions. Whenever I'm doing thumbnail sketches, I just kind of draw an oval. I understand that it's an oval, but if I'm not drawing anything else to kind of tell me that it's a hand, I kind of have to go back to it and go, oh, what was I thinking this should be? So making notes really helps you figure out exactly what things are if you have drawn them in so simple of a shape that it's hard to understand. Such as if you draw a cylinder. Well, is the cylinder a soda can? Is it a vase? What is it? Setting a color palette is a really good way of working in your sketchbook as well, especially if you're planning on working in color. If you work in color and you set kind of a main color palette, you don't have to do a lot of guesswork in figuring out what colors go together well. And composition to media size. What that means is your thumbnail, if your thumbnail is a rectangle, your paper better be a very similar rectangle. If your thumbnail is a square, your paper needs to be a square. You don't want to do a long skinny thumbnail and you're going to do it on wide paper, on short and wide paper. That it doesn't work out well whenever you're trying to plan something and your thumbnails aren't exactly what you need. And eliminate bad compositions as you work. So you're gonna basically get out ideas, and then as you look at it, you'll go, well, I don't like that one, I don't like that one, I don't like that one. Cross them out. Don't deal with them. Maybe you can come back to them and fix them at a later point, but always go with the stronger composition. So, every artist does their thumbnails a little differently. Some are messy, such as the artist in the background, and some are more organized like me. And yeah, like I said, who'da thunk? Everyone knows me. I am the messiest person in the world, but when it comes to thumbnails, I'm very meticulous. But if you look in the background at the drawings back there, they're not in like a grid. They're kind of overlapped, and bits and pieces are everywhere. Some people will do different things like that. Your page in your sketchbook that deals with your thumbnail assignment for doing thumbnails, that is already gridded out for you. But whenever you get into making your own thumbnails, as long as you label them the thumbnails for that project, I don't care if they're in a grid. I don't care if they're messy, like the background image. It can be either or. So, as long as you are planning, they'll help. And they will count towards your grade if you're Art 2 and above. Art 1, if you're Art 1 and below, if you are doing the thumbnail assignment. I love this guy's handwriting. It's so beautiful. I can't even read it, but it's so pretty. So remember, writing notes with your thumbnails is important. Since the thumbnail is done quickly and often forms are simplified to the point of not recognizing it, if you put it down in your sketchbook between working, you may forget that a cylinder is a vase and not a soda can. Always make notes, just like I said before. So, also remember, your first... That is a spelling error. Oh dear, I'll need to fix that. Your first composition is not always your best. If you don't take the time to play with your composition, then your artwork can suffer from falling short. Every artist revises. Take the time to think through your work so you can achieve a greater sense of accomplishment and a greater gain of technical and expressive skill. That is our goal here throughout all of art class, is so you can get better at technical skill and expressive skill. Those are the main goals. The more you do this, you'll get a better gain of those skills. So I've included some thumbnails I have made when I was an undergrad. If we look here, this is just a simple still life. If it will load. It's going slow. Well, come on. Come on. Oh, I don't know why it is going so slow. Let's look through here, though. So, if we look right here, this is like the final image that I was working with. Now, down in here, you can see where I was focusing in different areas. I sketched it in really fast. I cut off some part here. I cut off like the paper here, trying to make it, instead of landscape, making it more portrait. I was playing kind of with the framing of the image. Same here. I make dumb little notes on my drawings. Just pay no heed of that. But I was really looking forward, taking away and adding in things to this composition. And this is more of the final product here. This is how my art professor really wanted it. He wanted to have us a big frame for the artwork and a bunch of small frames for the thumbnails. If we look down in here, here's another. I hope to finish this one someday, but I have multiple different thumbnails going for this same composition. Same here. I was playing with different media. So I had wet media, well, they're both wet media. I had more solid, undiluted inks here, and this was far more diluted ink. This is more like water here. But first I had to plan out the composition, and so I picked this one over the others. If we look here, this is where I was planning out what a project was going to be. So I have marking where my light source goes, background or not. I was trying to figure out exactly how I wanted this to go. And this is the bigger picture over here. This is a detail of this one. Here's where I'm doing color swatches. So experimentation and practice. Like I said before, sketchbooks can be for experimenting and practicing in them. And I highly recommend playing with different mediums in your sketchbooks if the paper can stand up to it. And even making charts in your book. There are some pages in your sketchbook that will not hold wet media. You cannot paint in every single page of your sketchbook. It just won't do it. But I have included some pages in there that you can kind of experiment on with them. If we go down here, in the background, this is a color chart, color swatch. A lot of artists do this whenever they get a new set of colored pencils or markers or anything like that. They will make these little charts in here. They will write the name, and then they will do a little bit of swatch of color in it from that pencil. Because like a good example is Crayola red is not the same as Rose Art red, and it's definitely not the same as Prismacolor red. So this helps you determine exactly what color you're getting if you do a swatch like this. So this is where I kind of said that every bit of media color can look different. Some media quality disparities can really show up if you do color swatches. It will really show up if you put them side by side by side. So here's some more. Some more of the higher end pencils and markers and such come in numbers because they're very, very, very specific that way. If I go down here, here's a paint swatch where they're mixing paint and seeing what degrees in such a paint they could get. Here's another color swatch where they're using ultramarine, magenta, and red. Not red, Hansa yellow to create these varying degrees of color by mixing them all together. Here's where I've done it. I have some like swatches on this side that I've messed with to try and get the right color that I need. Here's some more of those numbers. And this one is varying in pressure, so this is like lighter pressure versus harder pressure. Here's one where it's more, I think this is watercolor. It could be watercolor or marker. But if you notice, ultramarine number 660. There could be an ultramarine number 662. So this helps specify exactly what color that is. So here's more examples of that. So it's a good idea to do this. It takes a lot of the guesswork out, narrows the margin of error, and it goes on both ends of the spectrum, from cheap Crazy Art and Crayola to the expensive Faber-Castell Polychromos and Prismacolor Premier. It's either way, no matter how cheap or how expensive your stuff is, you do color swatches. Saves you a lot of time. You can also swatch pencils if you have a drawing set, charcoals, or even pens. This really helps you understand the quality and predictability of your materials. It also helps you plan out things better. So this helps you in the long run to kind of figure out, oh, that's how this marker behaves. This mastery of materials is a large part of technical skills. So here's the thing about experimentation. You can collage or even sew your paper to make some awesome finished pieces. And once you have worked out problems in your sketchbook, if you end up drawing a nice sketch on a piece of paper that's not in your sketchbook, cut it out and paste it in your sketchbook and save it for keeps. Unless it's on homework or a test, wait until you get the paper back then. I don't need you failing class because you cut out your part of your math homework and glued it to your sketchbook instead of turning it in. We don't know. Turn it in first, get the grade first, then you can do it. If you find a photograph in a magazine that you wish to draw from, you can do the same. Cut it out, paste it, then make a study drawing of it. There's no limit to the amount of experimenting you can do with the sketchbook. I have an example over here in artwork where they embroidered in the veins over this medical drawing. So it's not unusual. I like sewing my paper as well. It's something that is happens a lot nowadays, but it creates something very interesting, and it's a really good play on the element of texture. So lastly, you're gonna have fun. Your sketchbook can let you have fun. So you draw memes in it, draw silly things in it, figure things out. You know, you don't have to treat it serious all the time, because then you're gonna get art block, and then you're gonna feel bad because you're not creating work that you feel is good enough. Sometimes the best drawings are the dumbest ones that you make. I will tell you that. I really get out a lot of stress and frustration by drawing very silly things in my books. And that will help you immensely. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you. So in the next video, I will be going over thumbnail sketches in more detail, kind of working from example and showing you a demonstration on how I personally do it, so you can do that in your sketchbook and complete your sketchbook assignment. Until then, see ya.